9th, 2025, City Council meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Briggs,
Approval of minutes.
Move we approve the minutes of May 27th.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes. Resolutions. First up, Bill number 2025-37, a resolution of the official intent of the City Council of Mexico, Missouri to issue industrial revenue bonds to finance a project for Spartan LMP LLC. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. Spartan has requested that the city prepare and approve a plan for industrial development. And this would involve the purchase of a certain personal property for the company at their manufacturing facility here in Mexico. And part of that would be to issue industrial development revenue bonds in the principal amount of $15 million, and those bonds would be payable solely out of payments from the company, would not result in the city. To cover additional details, Gigi McRae.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. The City of Mexico, Missouri is authorized and empowered under the provisions of Article 6, Section 27B of the Missouri Constitution and Sections 100.010 to 100.200, inclusive of the revised statutes of Missouri, to purchase, construct, extend, and improve city projects for the purposes set forth in the Act, and to issue industrial development revenue bonds for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of such projects, to lease or otherwise dispose of such projects to private persons or corporations for manufacturing, commercial, warehousing, and industrial development purposes upon such terms and conditions as the city shall deem advisable. Spartan LMP LLC has requested that the City of Mexico prepare and approve a plan for an industrial development project involving the purchase of certain personal property for Spartan LMP LLC manufacturing facility at 2201 Jubal Drive in the City of Mexico. Spartan LMP LLC has requested the City of Mexico issue its industrial development revenue bonds in the amount of approximately $15 million to provide funds to pay the cost of the project and lease the project to Spartan LMP LLC. The bonds would be repaid solely from lease payments made by Spartan LMP LLC to the City of Mexico. The project is expected to promote economic development and industrial growth within the city, increase employment opportunities, and benefit local taxing districts. This resolution does not bind the city to issue the bonds, but expresses official intent, allowing the company to proceed with project expenditures and to be reimbursed from bond proceeds if they are issued. Staff recommends council proceed with the reading by title only and passage of resolution approving the official intent of the City Council of Mexico, Missouri to issue industrial revenue bonds to finance a project for Spartan LMP LLC and authorize certain actions relating thereto. Respectfully submitted. Any questions?
What direction's the personal property they're buying? I guess,
Direction.
like the equipment.
It's equipment.
Oh, okay. All right. my fault.
It's basically a machine
Okay.
that I think where they're trying to go with this, and all the details are yet to come, but as part of their aluminum plant, as far as their parts go, this machine will use some of the recycled parts to remelt them and reuse them. So, and this machine, I understand, is very expensive, $10 million machine, like the other machines they brought in. So,
Awesome.
And what was the timeframe on that? When would they kind of be looking?
they want to proceed with purchase as early as July.
And I know this is a repeat, but we are under no obligation for anything later.
It's all on- it's all on
Whether they
their-
bail out or belly up or whatever.
Solely on their credit, yep.
Okay.
I move for reading of bill number 2025-37.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Bill number 2025-37, a resolution of the official intent of the City Council of Mexico, Missouri to issue industrial revenue bonds to finance a project for Spartan LMP LLC and authorize certain actions relating thereto. I move for passage of Bill number 2025-37.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Second resolution, bill number 2025-38, a resolution of the city manager to enter into agreements with the Mexico School District for additional police services. Mr. Slate?
Yes, Your Honor, this is our annual agreement with the Mexico School District for the school resource officers, and to cover the details of the contracts, Chief Mesko.
Hello, Council. As Mr. Slagle said, it's time once again to renew the school resource officer contract, or SRO contract, with Mexico Public Schools. Like many communities, the schools are an integral part of Mexico, and the schools and public safety have had a strong partnership for a long time. In summary, the contract has the schools paying for 60 labor hours of police services throughout the year, and we have dedicated officers who fill that role the majority of the time. We feel that our partnership does meet the goals of providing a safe learning environment and help reduce school violence, improve school law enforcement collaboration, and improve the perceptions and relations between students, staff, and law enforcement. So the attached resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into the agreement with Mexico School District to assist in providing additional police services at all school district locations. The City of Mexico, by its public safety department, would assist by providing police services for the safety and protection of the students in the public school district. The costs of these services will be funded by the Mexico School District. So staff recommends that the City of Mexico and Mexico School District enter into agreements providing one full-time and one part-time school resource officer, and that council proceed with reading by title only and passage of the attached resolution. Answer any questions?
How do you determine if, I guess, the district needs more, I guess, or less?
Just the really communication with the district. We really I kind of always view the SROs as kind of the point people, but all of public safety, I think, has to be part of the school district. So kind of the SROs may be the liaison people, and they are there all the time. But we try to keep officers in school zones. We try to have other officers respond and help out as needed. So it's kind of a team effort. The question of the part-time SRO may be what's
Well,
about.
yeah.
And you know, we feel like we've met the needs so far. We actually, I talked about it with the superintendent a month or so ago, actually. So we think we're doing okay, so
Yeah.
that's how we determine it.
I'm assuming that you get a report whenever there's an issue that the SROs have to be involved in. How many of those do you get a year?
The SROs are involved in a lot every year. Not all of it becomes official police reports, but, you know, they're actually involved. So we don't have reports of every little thing they do. How many times? It's really just a few times a year that something might be considered violent, like a fight that's more, a little escalated or something like that. That would only really happen a few times a year. Sometimes law violations, maybe contraband that's illegal or something along those lines, they can happen pretty regularly. So I don't have that number.
So that's what I was thinking in terms of how many, times a week, a month, a year does somebody have to search a locker for drugs or whatever the case may be?
Right.
Guns or whatever.
Right. And we're mostly, so I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but for maybe drugs, stuff like that, a lot of that's school policy initiated, and then we follow up. Safety things like guns or something, we're going to be in the middle of from the get-go. So, yeah, safety things really aren't super common, but there's going to be a few a year concerns, either founded or unfounded.
Yep.
Move for reading of Bill 2025-38.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Bill 2025-38, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements with the Mexico School District to assist in providing additional police services to the school district. Move for passage of 2025-38.
Second.
Tague.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Other business, staff report, discussion of property maintenance codes. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor, as the council has discussed on different occasions and is aware that the community as a whole, we experience a number of code enforcement issues, nuisances, if you will, and one of the things that Nathan was directed right from the get-go was to take a look at our nuisance codes and since his hiring and give us opinions. He's got a strong background in this area. And so he has done quite a review. And so this evening, we're bringing forward some thoughts and ideas for discussion. There really isn't any action this evening outside of input from the council on what they think of these things and what's being proposed to say, here's how we can maybe do a better job of enforcing and cleaning up the community. And so with that introduction, at this point, I'll turn it over to Nathan to present what he is proposing.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I will try to be as, I guess, entertaining or interesting as you can be with code enforcement regulations, although I do find this pretty exciting, not just in terms of the work that everyone's put into it, but in what this could really mean for the community and all the residents' lives individually. I will thank all the staff who helped and put a lot of thought and effort into this. It made it a lot better, so I thank all of them for that. So what I'm not going to do is just reread the memo that you guys have all been sent. I will go through it and sort of just gloss over in as much detail as is necessary the 6 ordinances that would really come out of the 6 major changes that are being proposed. And then just any questions at any time, just go ahead and just fire away at me. And we'll sort of go through how this would work. So the first recommendation, let me say this, what I really try to do is go through all parts of the city code book, the entire book, and find any references to the code enforcement section, any parts that were conflicting or needed some clarification, get rid of duplicative stuff, and really just have everything in one place and to make everything as easy to understand as possible and as easy for us to implement as possible. So the first section that I'm posting some changes for, and this is number 1 in the packet of all the information, is in chapter 2 of our code book, and that is just adding some clarity to some of the definitions and positions that are in the organization. These terms, the code official, building code official, things like that, are mentioned later on and in the property maintenance code. And so you want to make sure that when you talk about somebody in one part of the code, the reference to them that goes back actually explains what they are. So that's the first section there. And then just adding clarifications of what the code official's duties are. And I'll also say in a lot of parts of the code, it has sort of bounced back and forth between building official and code enforcement and building responsibilities. And they're just fundamentally different. And so what I really try to do also is all of the functions of our organization and code that reference building, specifically new constructions, renovations, things like that, are in one part and have their own terminology. And anything having to do with code enforcement and property maintenance is in its own section with its own terminology because they're just different. And this is something that I had a lot of trouble with in my last position. We call our code enforcement officers building inspectors, which is completely different jobs. And so they said, oh, send out an inspector. Well, that's not a building inspector doing that type of inspection. It's a code enforcement officer doing property maintenance inspection. And so just trying to add that clarity here as well. So that's section number 1. Number 2 is not necessarily an obscure change, but it's a really important change. One of the codes that we adopt as part of the whole suite of codes we adopt is the existing building code. And that is a set of building codes for renovations of buildings that are existing, hence the title. For some reason, the way we had adopted that only allowed it in one small part of our zoning code, which really blocks a lot of things from happening and makes renovations and improvements much more difficult than they need to be. So the first change that we're recommending there is to get rid of the limitation to just C3 and make it applicable citywide. So that means any buildings that were built before the adoption date of the code, we could use the existing building code instead of the building code, which gives a lot more flexibility in terms of things you can do and standards that you have to adhere to. And especially for buildings like in our downtown, it will make renovating those second and third floors much, much easier, which is something we very much want to do. So that's the recommendation there. And then also as a matter of procedure, we have to get the date right of the adoption of the original code of the city, and that was also changed. So that's section 2 in the packet that you have. So section 3, and I want to make sure I'm just speaking right. So as part of chapter 6, which is everything to do with buildings, new buildings and renovations, we had also adopted the property maintenance code in that chapter. So what I'm suggesting for the third part is to just delete all references to the property maintenance code in chapter 6, because what I'm going to do is create a new chapter 43 that is all code enforcement and property maintenance. So all of those regulations will be in one place. So anytime staff or the public or anybody needs to reference property maintenance or code enforcement, it's in one place in the code. You don't have to bounce back between chapters, just to add some clarity there. Because we don't need things in there twice. And that's really all the section 3 that you have. It's just deleting the text from one section and moving into another. Okay. The fourth section you have references chapter 26. This is the section where police generally have a lot of their citations in here, and a lot of these are cited by officers when they give tickets. We previously had a lot of the, let me rephrase that. Right now, every code enforcement violation that we issue is cited in chapter 26, which struck me as odd because we also adopt the International Property Maintenance Code now. So we have this property maintenance code in our ordinances, but we're not citing it when we issue property maintenance citations, which it's just not right. So what I'm proposing to do is all of the references to nuisances and property violations are taken out of chapter 26, and chapter 26 is then consolidated to only be things that would be police citations. So property maintenance and code enforcement would be out of chapter 26. Chapter 26 would be all police matters. But all the items that were taken out of chapter 26 related to nuisances and dangerous buildings and things like that, they don't go anywhere. They're still in the code. They're just referenced in the property maintenance code. And this is something that happened here, and a lot of places do it. It happened where I used to be as well. You would just take sections of the code and just adopt it into ordinances, but you still have this code in place, so you sort of have the same text in two places, which you just don't need to be doing that. It just makes it more confusing. So again, chapter 26 suggesting that it just become only police violations, and all of the things related to property maintenance then come to the new chapter 43. All right, we're into the really fun stuff now. Pages corrected. Okay. Chapter 5 is one last part. One of the things that was in chapter 26 dealt with auto wrecking yards, and the text that was there really didn't make any sense in either chapter 26 or the code enforcement chapter. Where it belongs is in chapter 42, which is the zoning for the auto wrecking yards, because it's really just a definition of that use and the conditions on those facilities. So what I'm recommending is that that text just be cut and pasted into chapter 42, which is zoning, where the definition is. This one change would have to go to the planning commission first, so it could be adopted at the same time we adopted everything else should you choose to do so, because the planning commission meeting will be in July. But in all practicality, it wouldn't affect anything in the meantime. So, but chapter 42 is where that bit of text belongs. So suggesting that we move that bit of text there. The sixth section is the really fun stuff, all property maintenance stuff. So what we've done is sort of gone through everything with a very fine-tooth comb, which is why all the text is in red, because it's all new. And we've made our code, the property maintenance code, the International Park Maintenance Code, with our changes. So as part of the documents that were sent to you, and as part of the things that would be shared with the public, one is just a copy of the IPMC as it is. Two is a copy of the IPMC, then with all of the proposed changes in it. So it reads a lot easier than having to just jump back and forth. And then three, we also have a flow chart I made that would show our nuisance abatement process. And nuisances, the process is one of the things that is our biggest challenge right now in the current code. We're really not doing it. We're both not doing the way our code is really saying that we should do it, and our process sort of leaves out some steps that need to be there. The process now is much clarified as applicable to all violations, whether it's a burned out building or your grass an inch too high. The process is very clear and very simple. Obviously, the hope is that through better education and better discussion with members of the community, we wouldn't have to use that entire process that much, but that's the goal. I want to hit some of the big items that would be in this proposed Chapter 43, some of the things that I think are most important to the community. Again, the process is very clear. When you get a citation, how much time you get, how we work with you, what you could do if you went to court, how it would get abated by you or the city, all that very, very clear. We have also made the mechanisms for the city to get some of that money back, should we have to do it, the same across different violations and their severity. So whether we have to cut your grass for you or tear your building down for you, the city's following the same process throughout that as well. And one of the things that sort of jumped out at me related to the Main Street program that we're doing now, put in a prohibition of boarding up buildings. So basically, it's going to force building owners to keep your windows in your buildings, keep your doors in your buildings, as opposed to just throwing up 2x4s and plywood and making your building look really bad. And if you even just walk around downtown, that one little change would make a huge difference. And it's interesting, that's actually not a program that we would be the first persons to do. The city of Philadelphia actually adopted a program just like this, and it does make a big difference. So it's a really, I think it'll be a very, very valuable change. And the truth is, think about it not just in downtown, but on a residential street. If that house can't get boarded up, if that building owner has to keep windows and doors in there, the whole street is going to look much, much nicer and more welcoming, because you're not going to have this derelict house sitting there. So that's a big, I think, really impactful change. Then there's two basically brand new programs, and I know some have been discussed in the past, that I added in here that, in my opinion, would make a tremendous difference. And I can give some personal examples to those if you'd like. One is landlord licensing. That would be a once-a-year activity. If you have this is just for residential landlords, but if you have a rental property, you have to come in and get a permit. Just a way for us to know who everyone is, have up-to-date contact information, and have landlords understand that, we're on this. We're serious about holding you to the fire and keeping you responsible and keeping your properties up. Related to that too is then occupancy permits and inspections for residential properties when it's time to change occupancy. So these would not be annual, but every time you had an occupancy change, you would get an inspection with the city. We would walk around the property and walk inside to make sure that certain minimum standards were met. We found that there are guidelines in place for types of housing that the government's already created that sets basic levels of this, and I think that would really, really result in a lot of changes to some of the rental units around town and having a big positive impact in the quality of people's lives, because you really couldn't have any slums at all, or you couldn't have people living in any kind of substandard conditions anymore, because that would be addressed, or else they couldn't move into the property. So I think it would be a very, very impactful change. And the last one is a vacant property registration. This is something, again, that came from the Main Street program, how it kind of sparked in my mind. And vacant property registration is a mechanism that's been created by the state of Missouri for all municipalities to use if they so choose, and many do. And it's just an annual fee that property owners would have to pay to be on this registry so that they know that we're on it and we don't want their properties to be empty. And to, give them some type of incentive. And the truth is that the fee that I'm suggesting in here is actually half what the state allows, so we're going a little bit easier than we could, but not everybody does. And again, the intent is to not have the property owners want to keep their buildings vacant, to keep them occupied and in service and have a productive use. So that is a very, very quick overview of all the changes. I know it amounts to a lot of paper and a lot of text. Jumping back to the ways we'll notify the public, residents and businesses, a few things. The copy of the property maintenance code and the Mexico version will be posted on the website so that people can't say the documents aren't available. They will be available in entirety. And then as you saw, I came with some visual aids tonight. So the first thing we'll do is we've created a code enforcement brochure. This is just a draft. But the intent is to, get these changes passed and get these in the mail to every address so that everyone's going to know what they are, that we're serious now, and they're not going to be able to say that we didn't tell them. As a side note, one of the other things that I included in here was some notes about animal control and a form to register your pet at the city. A lot of the animals that we pick up and have at our facility end up being people's pets, and we return them to them, which is great. But if we could stop that would free up a lot of space in our animal control facility and a lot of hours chasing down pets that belong to people. So they need to understand what the regulations and requirements are to be a responsible pet owner, because that will really pay exponential dividends. And the last thing that you guys have is a mock-up of the new courtesy notices, which are certainly very courteous. This is the size they'll be. This is the actual paper that they'll be. I couldn't get giant samples of the paper, but this is the color, which I could probably walk down the street, you still be able to see, and they're actually a sticker, so you can't tell that it blew away either, because it's going to be on your door. And so those are the proposals. Any questions, comments? I can't be more ready for them, so.
I've got a few. It all sounds pretty good, so I'm excited.
I like that so far.
I'm excited that that you've put all this work into it. On the landlord registration, what's the deadline for them? I know it hasn't been developed yet,
Right.
but what would be like if this was approved, this month, how long would it take to?
So I'm 99% sure that in here it says January 1st, so it would just be an annual at the end of the year. So what we would do is, notify them now. They basically have 7 months to get everything in order, and then January, we got you, which is more than enough time for people to understand, come around, accept, get their things together, and for us to start those lines of communication with everybody around town.
So theoretically, a new landlord in February would wait till the next cycle,
No,
January 1st.
everything starts, so you would start in February, you would just have an 11-month permit instead of 12 months, but it would be renewal every year at the same time.
But you're asking them to come in and fill out this form
Yes,
and pay the fee,
that's correct.
and you would how would they know if they're a new landlord and,
Right, so,
first-time landlord, I guess is
Gotcha.
what the term I'm trying to think of.
one of the things we can do, and we did.
Give them a sticker.
Pink sticker.
Well,
Pink
and people will have to come in as a utility account, so we would be able to catch a lot of things like that. And there will be a little bit of a learning curve and growing pains with some items, none that are terrible. It's just a new process for us. We do need to do a better job of communication with our residents just about things that we're doing and changes that we're making. things that we did before, where I used to, we made a good neighbor brochure that we just had available. Just common items you needed to know if you were new to the community or just wanted to get along with your neighbors better. So just, will we be able to catch everybody and know all things, right at the beginning? We won't, but nobody would. But we can do a better job of getting, even if our website's more organized, which I know that's one of the projects we're going to be working on, make sure the information is known around town. And a lot of these things, like I said, once these processes start and we start to change mindsets and get awareness out there, people will just know, and hopefully the behavior patterns will change a little bit. So that is a fair concern, but I don't know that the number of new landlords versus us just getting the ones that we have already registered, I think we'll be all right with that.
Yeah, communication.
Oh, for sure.
What is the registration fee going to be?
$100.
So if the registration fee is $100 for a year, right?
Yes.
And so if somebody registers their business on July 1st, is it prorated, so they can pay $50?
I can make that change if you...
No, I don't know, I'm just asking, what's your plan?
I mean, my inclination would be no right off the bat, but if that strikes somebody as unfair, I don't have an issue with that.
That question will be asked, is all I'm saying.
So I guess I misunderstood. It's not a one-time, lifetime.
It's
an
license is
annual.
But the inspection is good, the occupancy permit inspection is good as long as that tenant is there.
Yeah.
We'd only re-inspect those when someone moved out or moved in.
It's just residential only?
Yes.
Which brings up mine, why not businesses as well? If I own a building and a tenant leaves and setting up another business, why are we not going in and doing that within a business to make sure everything's up to code?
So I don't know what the process is or what we do yet for when someone gets a new business license. I would imagine that there is something already in place, and I don't want to misspeak, but we certainly could if we don't, but I would imagine that, if you're moving in, you're going to probably be making changes to that space anyway. So I'd imagine there's things that we do regarding building permit or getting your business license that would cover a lot of those things.
We looked at that one time for a business, and we were going to change the usage from a fast food place to a pharmacy. And it had to be re-inspected.
Right.
It's a change of
For a change of use. Right.
There's
So
an
that's
inspection.
Yeah.
There's already in place.
There is
Right, it's already in
a component
place.
of our business license process that does trigger like a fire inspection.
Yeah.
Now, it's not a full-on building code inspection, but the fire department.
Most of our downtown buildings are not going to pass the code. So you're going to knock a bunch of people down.
Definitely not. So there's two issues at play there. One is passing the code. It's important to know which code. So when you're renovating those spaces, that goes back to the existing building code. And that code gives flexibility to older buildings. So one of the questions is, if we want to put apartments, and this is not directly property maintenance, but just to answer the question accurately. So if you want to put apartments in the second floor of a lot of these buildings, you're not going to meet modern fire standards because you're not going to be able to sprinkle these at any reasonable cost. And some of the buildings may just not be able to handle it. But there's ways around that, finding number of egress you have and how can you address things like that in other ways to meet the standards. So we have codes in place and thought processes in place to address older buildings in terms of them remaining commercially viable. Now, property maintenance, yeah, some buildings downtown are going to have to fix their windows and get some paint up and do some stuff with their, awnings and things like that, and that's okay.
I don't have a problem with that. My problem would be a building that is rented for some purpose and they go out and somebody else wants to come in. Number one thing is, no bathroom in these old buildings meets any kind of code with the City of Mexico. And that is a tremendous expense.
Right.
So you're going to knock some people out immediately if they have to meet that code.
And they won't, again, that's going to go to the existing building code, and there's flexibility built into that that will take care of all those issues. So
Okay.
any of the old buildings will not be made commercially not viable by any of our city regulations. And in fact, we want to do the exact opposite and help those buildings to become viable and help them remain existing. So you don't have anything to worry about that specific issue.
Okay.
I've heard in the past about, you mentioned sprinkled buildings, that was an issue related to people fixing up their upstairs.
Yes.
And apparently the city was enforcing that, which they should if that's code. But that would make a lot of people really happy if we could work around that somehow.
Correct.
Without the place burning down and catching people in it.
Right, so, I only look one direction, right? So whatever happened back there in the past, I'm just not worried about that. We've always had these codes in place for a long time. I don't know why one thing was or was not looked at, but I do know that is no longer the case. So I've had people ask me about the apartments. Happy to help anyone get those apartments done in the second floor of their buildings, not a problem.
Vacant registration, that's, how long does a building have to be empty before it becomes a vacant?
I believe it's 180 days in there, so 6 months. And there's specific criteria that would have to be met. So, if your building was, if you kept it in great shape and you just didn't have a tenant, that's not going to get you on the registration. If there's no tenant for 6 months and the grass is really high and you got paint falling off and, on and on, then we have a different situation. But the goal is to have that here to bring awareness to the buildings that people are just ignoring or saying, oh, the city's not serious about that. And really look at this. The commercial buildings are one thing. We'll deal with those. But look at this specifically. I think it'll make the most immediate impact in some of the residential neighborhoods. If there's a house that someone's just ignoring, if they suddenly have to pay $200 a year or whatever, so I think it's whatever it is, to just exist there, and then we know, what's going on? It's just, I think it's just kind of annoying, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, there's a few of them. And I'm visualizing them right now, and it's been years.
Yeah, and that's not the point.
Years.
We want to get those fixed up.
Yeah.
So, but, maybe they think that we're not serious, or they don't even know that we know about those, but if they have to report it to us, they're certainly going to know that there's eyes on it.
How are we defining motor vehicles? Are we defining electric bicycles as a motor vehicle?
I would defer to other standards that we have in the code, specifically the police, and the chief on the forefront here. But there is a definition, I believe, of vehicles in IPMC, so that's really going to be your rusted out cars and things of that nature sitting in your yards. With the motor vehicles specifically in terms of code violations, obviously if it's registered and runs, that's not an issue. You need to park in your driveways. You need to not be parking in your yards. That specifically is a little bit of a different issue too. We should be ticketing those, but I don't want to get too far in the weeds in that. But if someone's got the broken down cars parked in their property and they're doing auto disassembly and they're working on cars in their yard, absolutely not.
We had a neighbor some years ago, we laughed about it because he's really a good guy, but he had, at one point, he had a bunch of riding lawnmowers. And he didn't mow, his wife did. And it would break down or stop in the middle of the yard. And it was an acre yard or something. And she'd get off of it, go to get another one, start mowing, it'd break down. There were 3 at one time, and we laughed about their yard ornaments. But is that a motor vehicle that this would apply to? How does that work?
Yes, it is. And I'll give you an so 2 little interesting anecdotes. So growing up in a car family, I think at one point my dad had 8 cars, many of them in the driveway with flat tires or on a trailer, and he certainly got violations and just didn't pay any attention to them. He was very lucky that I was not the code enforcement person at that time.
That was your father?
That was my dad.
Okay.
He was a really interesting guy, good guy. But so also another town where I worked at called Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia. It was a very rural place. And some people had that 1950s Ford truck in their yard that had been there for 50 years. And they actually specifically crafted an ordinance for like rural lawn decorations of their old car, something which, I guess that was okay, but, the broken down 2018 Dodge Ram in the yard is not the same as the, old F-100, so kind of, I just thought it was really interesting they did that, but I can actually vividly remember the ordinance, that the vehicle that ordinance was written for, but the broke down lawnmowers would have to go.
So you're saying a Ford's okay and a Dodge is not? Just thought since I sold both of them, I'd like to know.
And necessarily, I guess, because the age is the important thing.
Well, just GM products are all okay now, that's all we got.
Do what?
GM products are okay, that's all we have in Mexico, only deal with new.
Any other communities doing the landlord registration in Missouri?
I mean, a lot.
A lot.
A lot. I mean,
Our size?
I came from Berkeley, we have them there, most places in St. Louis County have these things, it's extremely common.
Right. Okay.
Moberly has.
And then the boarded up windows on some of the downtown area, is the grandfathered in card going to be played on some of that?
They will be grandfathered in, that's just how it works, but if they're ugly, they can't put it back anymore, so they'll have to work with me.
So like just a panel that's painted the same color, monochromatic, those are going to be grandfathered in?
Unless the paint's chipping off and they look terrible, for the time being, we're going to stomach those things. But there's plenty of other things that I can just think of on the top of my head that are going to get fixed up and replaced pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I would imagine we would see some changes downtown pretty soon.
And how long do you think it'll be before you run out of town?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I don't know that anybody knows where I live yet, so that's okay.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not worried about it, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, and then we've got a new resort and spa on Monroe Street.
Across from Casey's there?
Yeah.
No.
Is it,
That was
how
where I
much
was
does it
gonna
cost
take
to
you
stay there a night?
That's where I was going to take him tomorrow. Look at
In a room with a window or without a window? There's both kinds there.
I will say, the next task I'm working on is some zoning code edits, so if there's a particular use I need to look at, please let me know. But
That's a fish pond.
Is that what it is that they swim in?
That's
Because the
what
kids
they-
are swimming in it.
Yeah,
There's
that's what they
umbrella.
call it, as a fish pond, but yeah.
Okay. Putting on the tanning lotion and cucumbers on the eyes, and, yeah.
The umbrellas were up over the weekend, yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Wow.
The fish don't get hot.
Well, I'm still excited about it all, yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, the staff's put a lot of work into it, and I know that I haven't always been the most agreeable in some of those meetings, which I'll admit to, but I really believe in this. I've been doing code enforcement at every job I've had, and, I don't think it's going to take too long for people to really hate these, honestly, and I think that's really going to get a lot of things cleaned up, which I know is what everybody really, really wants to see. Happy to bring all these changes to you guys.
So this is for discussion at this point. If you go and do more reading, more looking at it, if you got other thoughts or ideas, please bring them back in. And if there's things that you see in here that you don't like or things that you want added, let us know that also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, staff report, discussion on the use of recreational vehicles on city streets. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor, this was, again, a request to be brought back before council to consider off-highway vehicles to be used on the city streets, and we've got some additional information, and, we've discussed this before, but to kind of give the staff report and some of the things as far as identifying vehicles and different things, Chief Mesco.
Again, so, first of all, I was reminded today that I'm not near as cool as I think I am, so that packet that I made for you guys, I tried to embed the little highway patrol thing, and apparently I don't know what I'm doing. So I didn't get you the highway patrol flyer. There was a cover sheet on there, but I don't think you could see it. So that's actually what I meant to put in there.
I got it.
So, now, I actually got to put on
Thought I saw that.
glasses too, in case you make me read any of the stuff I gave you. So due to the requests by some Mexico residents, council has requested a staff report providing information to consider on the topic of ordinances allowing off-highway vehicles to use the streets of Mexico. So attached is the requested information, which includes the brochure, it now includes the brochure explaining various vehicles from the Missouri State Highway Patrol, clarification of vehicles not listed in the brochure, portions of all applicable state laws, and the applicable codes of federal regulation. It also includes a review of information gathered in 2020 and 2023, the proposed ordinance which did not pass in 23, and additional information we came across this year. In summary, these vehicles are not designed for roadway use, and some provide less protection in the event of a crash. The state of Missouri does not allow these vehicles on roadways, but does allow limited exceptions. Further, the state of Missouri has allowed for cities to provide greater exceptions inside the city limits. It's been the position of Mexico Public Safety that the roadways in a community this size or greater are created, maintained, and policed so that people can safely get from one place to another. Using the state-authorized exemptions, exceptions, event permits, and practical enforcement, we feel that all residents and visitors can safely use the roadways to meet their many different, legitimate, and simultaneous goals. We feel that no further exceptions are necessary. I was going to add that, through the years, during all these discussions, Mexico Public Safety has never actively campaigned against these exceptions. We've never spoken on the radio or done articles or made social media posts. But because of that, I have seen people kind of change their examples of the hardships they're experiencing depending on their audience, and watch people present problems that they feel require exceptions, but they don't always mention that other solutions exist. The exception ordinances are not about someone just using their own property for something and the city is worried about noise or smell or appearance. These are people wanting to use the roads with equipment that's not recommended for them. The law already allows for exceptions for legitimate use. So for example, if say True Manufacturing or some large facility is using an off-highway vehicle on their property and they have to briefly be on the road, that is allowed, and it's the same for agricultural reasons. Laws just prevent people from running around and using the roads for whatever they want with these vehicles. You likely have friends or family who come to you with their specific type of vehicle and told you how much the exception is needed. I have two, believe it or not, I have a few friends who likely feel that that person would do it safely and responsibly, but we would ask that we remember that when laws like these are made, it allows everyone to push the limits, not just those people that we know. So in short, really, any exception that's passed is kind of just a subjective decision about what is safe and what is not. So we do recognize that the council needs to tell the group of advocates what your position is. We would recommend that you take a reasonable amount of time to consider all the information in the report and seek any clarification that's needed, because there are many variables to consider when the city authorizes its roadways to be used in exception to law and against manufacturer recommendations. So, all that being said, I don't know if you've had time to digest any of that and have any questions now or not.
Chief, I just want to make a comment to you and to the council. I made it to Mr. Slagle previously. When I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, I'm not advocating for or against at this point. I thought that the people who came in deserved an answer. Are we going to address it, or are we not going to address it? Hate to see them coming back all the time and us ignoring the whole process. That's my whole reason for bringing it up.
Totally respect that, and that's actually kind of what the point, when we gather this, and that's kind of what I was saying in that final paragraph is I would encourage you guys to consider it, but then I know there needs to be just a reasonable amount of time, not forever. And if you guys don't have any questions, I'll gladly discuss it.
I see I guess not so much I see the motorized bike in the thing, and the guy's on a scooter, which I'm probably assuming is over 50 cc's.
On that highway patrol brochure?
Yeah, I can't imagine that that's not probably there. I mean, and I see high schoolers jump on these bikes and come to the school and stuff, and you got to wear a helmet if you're not 26 years old, correct?
On a motorcycle, yes.
But if it's considered a motorcycle, it's 51 cc's, right?
Correct. And then you should be.
So then becomes my concern, when we see this, are we pulling those people over and double checking that that stuff's happening? Like, is that a 50 cc bike they're on, or is it bigger than that?
Sure, so that's a solid question, and so that actually cuts right to the heart of all this, right? Enforcement is hard on all these. I know a lot of people are annoyed by the little two-wheel vehicles, whatever we're gonna call them, scooters, et cetera, that run around. And honestly, a big section of or a big reason it's so hard to enforce those is because of the moped exception that was added years and years ago. When the state first said, well, mopeds can be on the road, they're kind of treated like bicycles as long as they have a small motor, but you're supposed to be able to pedal them as well. And then after a while, they got rid of the pedaling thing. And now, it's kind of a constant debate on what the vehicles are when we see them. So we do try to enforce all this stuff. We really do. I know there's a thought that maybe we ignore stuff. We actually make stops. We actually try to either warn people or summons people. And we actually do, I contend there would be, what you guys would see out there would be a little worse if we weren't doing what we do. Because I do see people that curb their behavior after we take some sort of action. Do we pull over, do you have the right to pull over a vehicle and determine the CCs of the motor? So to determine that, or to have the right to stop the car, you have to have kind of reasonable suspicion it's breaking the law. So really, what we kind of use is it going faster than it seems like it should be able to? Then we can stop and try to inspect the motor and all of that. If short of that, I'm going to be a little hesitant for us to light some vehicle up and say we need to determine the size of the motor. And that kind of speaks to all of this. And actually, that's kind of, maybe one of my points is that if you've ever been annoyed by any vehicles out there and thought, man, those vehicles shouldn't be on the road, what the heck are the cops doing, why can't they do anything about this? I just don't, it won't help us. I just don't think it helps us in this cause to add more exceptions.
Well, and I don't disagree with you. My thought process is of the safety factor, and if we're sitting there, if I'm a police officer and my whole thing is safety, I don't want UTVs or golf carts on the street and stuff, then when I see something I think's questionable, safety-wise, moped, kid doesn't look 16, might be over 50 cc's, now all of a sudden I have reasonable suspicion that something needs to happen, or I'm going to check that safety. I mean, nothing may happen, but that becomes, I mean, it becomes, I don't want the UTV. I see that, but I don't have any reasonable doubt to pull that person over. But, I mean, it could be unsafe because if it is over a certain size limit, they're supposed to be wearing a helmet. Now they are unsafe and they're outside the law.
If it's outside the law.
Yeah.
And that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is safety, we can't really just light someone up and say, hey, is that really safe? Unless they're violating the law. Now, in theory, all the laws are designed, don't run a stop sign, don't speed, wear a helmet in certain regulations. But we can't just subjectively say, hey, that looks unsafe. So, and then the moped thing, the motorcycle thing, bicycle thing, they kind of all mesh. What are helmets needed for, not, and what are they not? I'm not against electric bicycles, but that actually, the officers and I were just in a discussion last week, that hasn't helped us either. And actually that brochure from the Highway Patrol, not cracking on the Highway Patrol, but they added some stuff in there that That's not going to help us differentiate between vehicles either. So, yeah, it's kind of a mess, and it always is, and I guess that's kind of my point is I'd love to keep it as simple as possible, if the public will put up with it.
So just for my information, who's allowed to drive what entities are allowed to drive a golf cart on Mexico streets?
Are allowed to drive a golf cart. So that's kind of where I said like event permits and stuff, we do that.
Okay.
We also, and I mentioned like the way we enforce things, we don't ever go anywhere and just sit and spy on somebody when they're on private property with a vehicle that we know isn't legal on the road and wait for them to get one tire on the road and light them up.
Well, let's take walk back in time.
Sure.
All the way up and down all the streets. Is that okay?
We've authorized it.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
So yeah, that's what I was saying with event permits. In those cases, we usually require the event organizer to tell us what vehicles will be used, tell them they need to have licensed drivers, insurance, and what area they'll be used in. Because we have experienced basically all these ordinances and all these laws result in everyone pushing the limit, right? So people tend to find other reasons and other areas to use stuff, even during the, say, event permit authorizations. But yeah, we'll have places that say, yeah, we need a shuttle. We want to use something as a shuttle. And to walk back in time, I think actually it was one that does it. So, yep, we'll authorize it. We'll just get in the event permit, which in essence is an event permit's a request to violate the laws, right? We want to block off a road or we want to do something. So we'll authorize it and try to make it as safe as possible.
But I would also add to that, when we have found them, and we've had some events where they start operating outside of what they said they were going to do,
Well, that's part of my question.
and we have went to the event
Yeah, and
and
actually,
said, you got to stop this.
I don't want to knock any certain event, but I was actually telling a war story that within the past year, I had to go to the event organizers and say, hey, you guys are getting crazy with these things.
Well, yeah, we have an event and they get ice at Mosier's and it's completely across town in a golf cart.
Yeah.
Many times.
So, yeah.
Completely, not just a little ways.
Well, that's exactly, so the organization, when they put in there, hey, we want it as a shuttle, great, so we figure out an area. And actually, another event that's coming up, I specifically said, hey, last year, found out you guys were using it to run errands all around town. Now, I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but a certain event, and we can't do that this year. And so they said, okay, we'll just use them for shuttle purposes.
Well, shuttling ice.
Well, I guess we'll debate that this coming year.
Breakfast sandwiches from McDonald's or whatever. Yeah.
You know, and I think that, I kind of go back, which, I know, and it's probably too simple, but I kind of see it as the chicken thing. I mean, we had so many talks on, well, where are we going to put all the stray chickens when they escape and stuff? I don't think we've caught one chicken yet. And if you've priced a golf cart, I mean, I was at a golf tournament this weekend, and they had some fancy golf carts that were probably $15,000. If you go look on there, there's no turn signal. And so if you're going to put all that stuff on a golf cart, you're either going to buy a real jalopy or you're spending $18,000 to $20,000 to get something that can be put on that street. And so I think that, I take to heart what you're saying, and the safety issue of it. The fact, if we pass this, I don't see it as all of a sudden we're going to have 1,000 golf carts on the street, because, I mean, I don't know if I could afford one. And my wife and I do very well. And so, but I don't know if I can go scratch a check for 15 grand to have all that and insurance and stuff that I can put something on the street. And I could be wrong. Now, when we start talking about, the off-road vehicles and stuff, which probably most of our constituents are wanting to talk about, other than, the veterans home. Now then, I think you get into it, but then those are $50,000, $40,000 to $50,000. And so, yeah, I understand. I I see Marshall passed it. I would like to see a little bit more about what they did pass, like details of if they had a roadmap or if whatever. I know they didn't pass golf carts, they passed just.
They actually started with golf carts.
Did they? I thought it said UTVs, okay.
They passed golf carts, and that's the other thing with the push on this is it really feels like people are generally, as a whole, are generally not satisfied.
Yeah.
Before the golf cart thing even went into effect, they turned right around and did UTVs. And what Marshall was telling me is that now the debate is, because I think it's 65 that goes through Marshall,
Yep.
whatever. Now the debate is the town too cordoned off and shouldn't everybody be allowing certain things? And now they're arguing the state law exceptions, but, and that's kind of a thing. But
Yeah. That's all I have. I appreciate it. Thanks for the information.
So we're back to the question, do you want to move something forward or not? Or do you want to consider this more or not? Or where do you want to take this issue? Because I think that's what you're even saying. They
Right,
deserve
that's
an
exactly
answer.
what I'm saying.
So is this an issue that we're going to bring back up, talk about more? You want something presented to you? Where do you want to go with this?
I think you all did your due diligence prior to that. As I said before, and I looked at some of the numbers as we were talking about, I think to get a city sticker for one of these carts is going to be over $25, which I think that was the number in there. I think that if you're going to do something, if you really want to, my whole thing is if you really want to put something on the road that's a golf cart or a UTV or something, then you really need to show that you want to put that on the road. I mean, that's my theory. I don't know what the price is, but if you come in to get that city sticker, what we put on there before was showing insurance and stuff like that, $25 is not going to be enough for me. And I knew there would be some logistics within there that needs to happen because they're going to have all this stuff that we had prior to, turn signals, brakes, and all that. But it's at the pleasure of the council. I mean,
I don't have a major problem with golf carts. I think I have a problem with other things like, and I don't even know what I'm talking about, side-by-sides and whatever all those other things are. They'll go 60, 70 miles an hour, and they'll go through yards, and they'll do everything else to get away from your people, chief. Those are the things that I have difficulty with. They're not safe, in my opinion, and they cause a problem for other people. But then I don't think bicycles, I rode bicycles when I was a little boy all over Mexico, and we did stupid stuff like don't stop at stop signs and, all that stuff. I think they're unsafe too, but we can't eliminate bicycles. So I don't know where I would think we should go with it. I don't have a problem going forward with golf cars, but I think I've got a problem going forward with anything else. So if that's an issue, then I'm not going to go to the mat for that. I think I'm done.
Okay.
I have nothing to say.
Well, my position
But I'm not going to
is
say it.
they are unsafe, and it's another thing that we're going to be having to look out for, when we're driving. Our blind spots and the uses for them might be defined on paper, but that's not how they're going to get used by the public.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is if we have an ordinance, and this is back to Chief and his staff, we need to enforce an ordinance if we're going to have an ordinance. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, to do. I see people in my neighborhood driving down the street with, I don't know, maybe 15, 16-year-old kids. I don't know how old they are. And then they have a bunch of little kids piled on the back of them. They're just out sightseeing. And it's not on the highway. It's not on a major street, but it's still dangerous. But I don't think it's going to stop because we have an ordinance that says you got to be equipped like yours, or we have an ordinance that says drive your golf cart anywhere you want to. The way it comes out of the factory is a golf cart. I don't think any of this stuff's going to stop some of that stuff. And I don't think your guys and girls can enforce everything that comes along. So, I don't know.
Well, there's an inherent risk at anything you do. If you get in a car, you're at risk. If you do, I mean, same thing as if someone chooses to get on a golf cart on a city street and they get injured, that was the risk that you took to get on that. I mean, I grew up on three-wheel golf carts, and you think about, these golf carts are dangerous.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was like a death trap. I mean, you know,
turn it over.
Oh, yeah.
Three-wheel with a tiller, that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no doubt. And so, you know, I don't know where you start and stop of regulating, you know, people's decisions. Of course, there'll be some people that, of course, that as they do now, as we see, you know, don't really care about rules, and they're going to do their own thing. So,
So do we drop it after this discussion, or where do we go? There?
I don't know. I don't know if, I just think that we'll probably be chasing our tail if we continue on, because, I mean, we have most of it in writing. There'd be a couple things I changed from the last time we did it. Unless we got raving reviews from Marshall or something like that, which, you know, we've seen that Moberly's had problems in some other places, and, you know, I don't know. I just don't know if we'll have the numbers to push it through. That's just me. So,
I know that O'Fallon, Missouri allows golf cars because they have people who live there with little kids, and they just bought one to run around O'Fallon, Missouri. O'Fallon's got a population over 100,000 people, and so, you know, and I've seen them when I've been there. You think, wow, these streets are really busy, and these people are running around in a golf cart with their 6 kids on the darn thing, or 3 kids, or whatever the number of kids is, doesn't make any difference. But I think it's darn hard to rescind an ordinance once it's passed. And I think it's darn hard to change it from including everything back down to golf carts once it's passed. I think,
Yeah, there'd be no test of it, yeah, because it will never be repealed once the can is opened. But heaven forbid.
Those are NEVs that they're driving. Those are NEVs they're driving, not LSVs and not golf
No,
carts,
they-
they're NEVs.
no, what these folks bought was a golf car, I promise you.
But it's an NEV, which is a neighborhood electric vehicle. Only difference is it runs 2 miles an hour faster.
Okay.
Just faster on the road.
It just hits a brick wall faster, harder.
I just would, I'd be beside myself if I hit somebody, you know, in my truck, and, you know, there is just zero protection. That's what scares me the most.
Well, I do the same thing, Ron. I appreciate what you're saying. I do the same thing if I had somebody on a bicycle.
And the bicycles as well, but we're multiplying. I would love to drive my UTV from the farm to town, and it'd be nice. It'd be great. But yeah, then we have a three-year-old in the middle or something, and then either that child falls out or gets hit by a car. It scares me.
My suggestion would be that we've discussed it, and nobody has said, let's bring it up and go forward with it. At least I haven't heard it. So we dropped it for lack of further interest, but at least we can tell the folks something who've been coming to meetings that, hey, we're not going to discuss it any further. That's just my suggestion. Now, there's a whole bunch of 3 or 4 years of the rest of you folks.
I agree. Okay. All righty. Next up, pagers, radio pagers. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. This is for a purchase of pagers for the Public Safety Department. We were originally looking at this as a replacement and potentially doing it over multiple years just due to the cost. However, with the savings that we've had in the budget, in the public safety budget this year, we felt it made sense to move forward with the purchase of all of them at this time instead of spreading it out. So, but to cover the details of the bids and the pricing, once again, Chief Metzger.
Keeping the glasses this time. So yes, as Mr. Slagle announced or said, we've got some pagers that just flat need to be replaced and they're becoming less functional. So originally it was kind of thought that we'd just replace some of the ones that we had. So as you know, public safety calls in off-duty officers and volunteer firefighters for emergency situations. That generally happens about 30 times a year. Even with cell phone technology, radio pagers allow for the quickest dissemination of information by our Joint Communications Center to the responders in the area. Mexico Public Safety's long used Motorola brand pagers for this and found them to be the most durable and reliable radio pagers available. Wireless USA of Columbia, Missouri is the area distributor. Motorola has now released the latest model of its radio pager, the Monitor 7. Motorola has indicated they have simplified some of the internal components, and that gives it more durability with no loss of function from previous models. The 2024-2025 budget allowed for $12,750 for the replacement of Mexico Public Safety Department pagers. Wireless USA has provided a quote to upgrade all 48 of our pagers and provide programming, charging bases, and a 2-year warranty for $21,072. And as Mr. Slagle indicated, while this is over the budgeted amount, we have already made up for that this fiscal year due to savings in other areas. So we would recommend that council approve the purchase of the 48 programmed Motorola Monitor 7 radio pagers with charging bases from Wireless USA of Columbia, Missouri for $21,072. Answer any questions?
Do all of your off-duty personnel carry them?
48 gives us our volunteer firefighters and all public safety officers, and then a few extras because we have them go down sometimes. And yeah, they're most typically used for fire emergencies, but it doesn't even have to be that way. There's a mass police emergency, can page out. We have them divided up in groups, and we can pick groups of them to page.
Oh, okay.
Any highlights of where the savings were that allowed for this
Staffing.
staffing?
We've saved.
Cut some poor guy's overtime or something, and there goes his
Not
Christmas?
being able to get enough people here earlier in the year, but that's a problem we're solving now.
Oh, gotcha. Payroll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe if we have fancy pages, maybe that just resolve the problem.
I move we approve the purchase of Motorola pagers. That's 48 of them at the cost of $21,072.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray.
Yes.
Staff report authorizing the purchase of a new effluent pump for the wastewater treatment plant. Seems like a monthly thing. Mr. Slagle.
Yeah, it kind of does. And we've kind of talked about this before and had some changes we had to do to this pump and unable to get it. So to cover the details, Drew Williford.
Is this your first time
Yeah,
tonight,
he is.
Drew?
Hadn't talked
Man,
much,
yeah. Wow. Looks like he was asleep.
We have 3 lift stations at our wastewater treatment plant, and the pump that's being discussed tonight is part of the effluent, the last stage of the treatment process, where we have 4 pumps in that, or I should say had 4 pumps in it. We currently have 3 in there now. Back in January, we were pursuing repair of this pump. We have Van Levanter Engineering, who is a preventive maintenance contractor. They do an inspection of the pump. They do all of our preventive maintenance. At the time, we thought we could get parts without too much trouble. Turns out, parts are no longer available. Pumps are only, I say only, they're 14 years old. They are approaching, and all 4 of them are. They're approaching their end of life. We hope still to get a few years out of them. We're still a little surprised that we couldn't get parts. And so after looking into this, we've looked into other options for suppliers that do provide long-term support for their pumps. Flight is one, and Flight is a pump that we use in many of the other lift stations throughout the facility. So it's one we have familiarity with, good track record. We can get parts for it in the long term. And Van Levanter Engineering is a sole provider of Flight in our territory. So we approached them with a quote for a new Flight pump, and they provided that quote with a $42,614 price tag. that is covered with a 5-year prorated warranty. Even if we bought the pump now, it would not be here for another 12 to 14 weeks. And we do want to, since this has been so long, we do want to try to move forward with something here in the near future. To cover the cost of that, we do have a project reserve for unanticipated costs like this. We budget yearly for pump repairs, and it normally takes quite a bit for a pump to breach the threshold of repair versus replacement. Unfortunately, in this case, it did reach that. We couldn't get parts. So we do have $80,000 in the project reserve that would cover that $42,000 purchase. And so we would request authorization to purchase a new effluent pump for the wastewater treatment plant through Van de Vanter Engineering at that cost of $42,614. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I move we authorize the purchase of a new effluent pump for the wastewater treatment plant from Van de Vanter Engineering at a total cost of $42,614.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Claims.
Move we approve the claims, pay the claims.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Good. All right, we'll start with Councilman Weber. Any comments?
Know of anything? I guess the Miss Missouri pageant's this week, I think.
there you go.
And that brings a number of people to Mexico, and that's a good thing for businesses, and that's about all I know.
Absolutely. Councilman Miller.
Same thing, Miss Missouri's coming, that's good, but also we have a Jeep event coming in the end of the month. It's supposed to be a barn burner. I don't know, we'll see what's gonna happen.
Councilman Ray.
I just wanted to compliment Kurt Crane. He's over at the yard waste facility, and he's over there doing a great job. He's very friendly and keeps a tidy place going over there. So nice person to have on that site.
Mr. Slagle.
I have nothing this time, Your Honor.
Good. I guess a few things I have. Got to do the walkthrough. Mr. Slagle took the Chamber Executive Board, and I got to go through the cancer wing, and I guess the first thought was, how sad it is for a building like that to have nothing in it or nothing going on. And I think some of the plans are really good for that. And so I just, I want to, tell the people out there, just, read up on it. I think it's a good opportunity, especially if we would love to see us, we're moving forward slowly with, hopefully with Boone, and we can put in a nice area over there. I got to play in the Chamber Golf there about a week ago. That was fun. It's always good to see the businesses out there and have some fun that make up our businesses in Mexico. My next thing. Is it possible, and this may be a crazy thought, is it possible to have a porta potty or something at like Green Estates Walking Park, like at the entrance and stuff? Because I know the nearest bathroom is over by Teal Lake. I guess if you really have to go, you can run that half a mile to go there. I don't know how bad that would look. I don't know what it would cost us, but I don't know the feasibility of that. I'm sure I'm not the only one that walks that park and thinks, I really need to use the restroom, I have to go faster. And I don't know if there's any other places or any parks that need that. I don't know if somebody being maybe a member of our business, I don't know if the Porta Potty Company's part of our business, if they might want to work a deal with us, but that's something I thought about as I kind of walked through there. I don't know if that's feasible or not.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah, with that.
Mayor, I heard a comedian one time say that if you see me running,
Yeah.
it means a laxative is working.
Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly right. Or somebody's chasing me, or something, what's that? Other than that, that's all I have for me. And so now it's the public's turn. If there's somebody here wanting to talk from the public, come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes maximum to state your concern.
Move adjourned.
Move or adjourn.
Second.
Haig,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Weber. Ray.
Yes.